Chris, and you're watching the Evercade film.
Hey everybody, this is Ed. I hope you all are doing well. And I wanted to make a video and kind of talk about the 5 top things that I took away when Sean from Blaze Entertainment was on the Evercast. Oh yeah, and if you haven't watched that in full and you'd like to see the full interview, that's going to be in the description below, and I may throw up a card here. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to put a video today. We're going to go through the top 5. And I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions, and also a bonus at the very end. So you're going to want to, stay tuned to that. And I'm doing them in order, right? You'll want to stay tuned for number 1 because, as the thumbnail says, I was right. So let's talk about the first one. Okay, so 12 carts in a year. This made me very happy. Blaze has been doing this, kind of since the beginning, since Evercade's inception, pretty much. The Sean confirmed that they're going to do the 12 carts in a year. That 2026 is already planned out, which will lead me to the next topic here. And then he said specifically that they would go ahead and maybe have 14, 15 carts, kind of like they've done in the past, if something pops up. So that tells me they do have deals in the works. They have some things that could go through. And they're gonna put those there, and they'll also do the equivalent of 2 carts every 2 months. And I love how Blazes continue to do that, ships them together, saves on shipping, especially in the current times. Makes a lot of sense. So I'm glad that they kept that, and that they haven't changed it. All right, so leading into the licensing, Jeff Minter. So this made me really happy that Sean specifically talked about. He said, notice that this is just called the Jeff Minter Collection, not Volume 1, but the Jeff Minter Collection. And he said that really to experience it, they wanted to make it all 1 cart. They had the choice to split it into 2, but I love how they weren't greedy, and that Sean said they understood, hey, we have multiple copies of games. We don't want to do that. We want to give you value, right? We want to give you value. And that, I think, is just really, really important. Had a great conversation with Sean where he talked about the licensing that, sometimes they get their pick of an entire catalog. Other times, they kind of know what the IPs kind of know what they have, and they'll maybe only let you pick specific ones, or if you pick one, then maybe you can't get another one, and all that. So that was kind of fascinating. But ultimately, they do have the choice to pick, what they want to curate these collections, and it makes sense. And I like how it varies, from publisher to publisher and all that. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I thought that was just some really neat insight. He also talked about for Microsoft, that licensing, has been in the works for a while, especially with the merger and everything from Activision, and I'll kind of tie it a little bit into that as we get closer to the end, and why that was so important. So yeah, it was just really nice to have those licensing insights, kind of what we thought. What I want to know though is, when were the times that they said, here, you can have these, or when are the times you can have choice? So yeah, that was great. So I don't think we're really going to be seeing any Konami or Namco next year. And I specifically asked Sean the question, could we see a Konami collection? Could we get TurboGrafx? And he said that while, kind of due to licensing and all that, we wouldn't see a Konami collection, but we could possibly see a Contra collection, which does make sense, because if you look at other platforms, that's what we do. We do have that, right? We do have a Contra collection. Hell, we even have a Castlevania collection and all that. So, and we have the other arcade collections, but none of them are directly called, Konami collections. And so I guess due to licensing, that makes sense. That's done. That's done for a reason here, but definitely though not next year. Because 2026 is already planned out. And he was also saying too that the licensing for Namco is tricky. And then he reminded us, he's like, hey, those licenses for Namco was only for Europe. It wasn't for the United States. And I think some of us forget that. So yeah, it definitely is a little bit trickier from what he was saying. But I do appreciate that they're looking into these things, and with Microsoft, it finally paid off. after a number of years. All right. So let's get into number two. So he did kind of hint that there might be a new handheld next year. And kind of from these conversations and everything, Blaze is saying that. Actually, let me take a step back. Pete asked the question. He said, of all the different devices that you have, what's the most popular that people are buying and gaming on? And he said it was the handhelds. I don't think he necessarily said Super Pocket, but he kind of lumped in the handheld and the EXP together. And he kind of said, well, that's the gateway to kind of get people involved, and that how like the keychains and everything in Europe really weren't a thing, but they're popular here, so that's why they're here. So you get those are a gateway, but he's because of that they're the most popular. He was kind of hinting, could we see a new handheld with a bigger screen next year and all that? I mean, he didn't kind of flat out say it, but I kind of got the impression, and you really have to kind of go through and watch the interview. But yeah, there were some hints that there could be a handheld with a bigger screen, but definitely not like an EXP 2.0 where it's a drastic rewrite of the whole operating system and new hardware and all that. Because one of the things that was talked about, he was saying, oh yeah, if we do want 64-bit games, like Glover and what we can port them over. If we want indie, he specifically said if we want indie games, as long as they're not on some proprietary engine like Unity, we can port things over. And I've been saying this for a while, that we don't necessarily need more powerful hardware. If it's something that Blaze really, really wants to have ported over, they can do that. Another brilliant question that Pete asked about, the new Terminator game, could that possibly run and everything? And Sean was mentioning, oh yeah, it could definitely be ported over. Having it being ported over is not the issue. It's the cost of licensing. And that's kind of what I thought with a lot of these. And that's why I think some people kind of jump the gun, and not everyone is in tech, so maybe they don't understand what the Evercade is capable of running, can't running. But when you port something over, especially specific to Linux, it runs silky smooth, and that's what's under the hood that runs everything in Evercade. And then the number one, and I've been saying this for a long time. All right. Yes, they know they need to cater to the U.S. market. Pete even mentioned, during Evercast, that, yeah, if you want to become popular and everything, you need to win over the U.S. market, because that's like the big gaming market and all that. And I'm so glad next year that Sean said that's their focus. That's where they're going. I mean, it makes sense. We got Neo Geo, we got Activision. I'm sure we'll see other licenses from Microsoft. So this is great news, and kind of what I've been saying for a long time. The Blaze needs to get out there in the mainstream. And Sean also did say, on top of that, again, I was right, that Arcade is like, he kind of said, if not the most popular, one of the most popular sellers, which makes perfect sense, because everybody pretty much who grew up at least in the 80s, you saw arcade machines everywhere. Even if you weren't a gamer, you saw one, you at least played one. They only were a quarter. You could not, you could walk like 10 feet and trip over an arcade machine. They're very popular, and so those of us really got into video games and retro gaming now later on, we resonate. We kind of share that common bond. So that has made me very happy that he kind of confirmed with all that. And he did say that we'll be in the same time zone next year. So yeah, he's looking at coming over to conventions in the United States and all that. So awesome. So cool. Blaze is getting in there. They would do it. And along those lines, he did kind of talk about our different cultures for gaming and all that. And they often have to do a lot of research and whatnot, which makes a lot of sense, and kind of gives the variety of things, the good or the bad, kind of depending how you look at it. And this last one, I have to put a bonus for all the fools out there. Yes, Evercade is physical forever. I get sick and tired of seeing people being like, well, they should have a store and all that, have digital downloads to fix the issues. And I'm like, no, that defeats the whole purpose of the device. And Sean made it very clear he understands that we want physical media. Evercade is all about physical media. He did talk about the survey that they did. And by the way, we're going to get the results of that survey. And he said people are more likely to spend more money on a physical game than to buy a $10 digital game. And that's kind of what I've been saying for a long time. Like physical, there's a lot more value. It's tangible. You can touch it. You get the booklet. It sits on a shelf. A digital game kind of goes off into the ether, and it's easy to be forgotten about. So yeah, those are my 5 takeaways. Let me know, did you watch the whole podcast? Are you going to watch it? Put your comments in the description below. let's get something going. If I left anything out, please go ahead and let me know. And thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and bye-bye. Thanks, Crashline, Immortal Sojourn, Amber Cummings, Joey Whitlush, Alex Groot.